Hi, I'm Ravindra Kumar. Our practice is Pragrup. We're primarily a Bangalore-based organization, primarily looking at research connected kind of work practice. The clients were pretty clear from day one because they've lived in many parts of the world, and there was an aspirational connect to make it into a new world, new age home, but it had to in some way be rooted to the planet where they came from. Very vernacular, and in some way, it had to be a house where you could voice the opinion that Earth matters. If you look at the site, it's primarily a very wide sort of rectangular configuration, and it had a very good sort of facing to the primary street. And then it did not have a very wide footpath, but if you look at the buildings in the proximity, it was not sort of the best context that you would ever want to look around. It's also very dense kind of population that you see all around. But for us, what was important was to build the house in such a way that we could create a sort of an introverted environment and make the whole house read primarily as a large sort of courtyard space looking inward, another sort of primary court inward, so that this, as a green space and this as a green space would act as a great connect of the visual requisite. It was primarily a north-facing site, so therefore, the whole aspect of, the visual connect for us for the house in terms of broad daylight was fantastic to be all taken in from the north surface. But nevertheless, the traffic was very intense. So therefore, for us, it was important for us to make sure that the house had to be sealed in terms of the sound insulation. But at the same time, the garden that we could get could be nice there, the garden can be nice there. So in terms of the statutory setbacks, whatever we got, we could manage to capture the best that was created as a sort of a micro environment. One aspect of the whole house was the section. I think for us in making any home, the section sort of experience of the house becomes very, very important. From the landscape, you sort of arrive into the porch space, and then you are in the entrance vestibule, and the vestibule extends with a little bit of the court space and the temple precinct, and then the bedroom. Now within this whole sort of arrival zone, when you look at it, we had one which was the mezzanine library, then it's connected to another level of the mezzanine library, and then the bridge connect around the sort of central spine of the puja, and then the bedroom connections, and then the main connections of the other bedroom. So this space acts as one particular vestibule connect. This space acts as another vestibule connect, and the walkway spaces acts as another vestibule connect. And all this is housed with one large sort of vertical, horizontal slab with a sort of a skylight sitting there. And this is again landscaped on the top. So that therefore this slab and this slab articulated makes these particular aspects of the house, sort of very, very haptic. So therefore, for us, making the house is not just about, the horizontal or the three-dimensional visual experience of the space, but how does the section work? How does it help air to move? A lot of invisible things, such as how does the light sort of come as an extra sort of added wedge line as a shelf? How does it make the room spaces absolutely vibrant and bright? That matters. And the spaces that we have as volumes, the visual connect of the people, what they see as they stand, as they walk, or as they move becomes also very, very important. If you look at the primary requisites of the house, there was one which was a kind of a public space sort of arena where they would meet people. And then there would be, the other, which is a very private space where the master suites are. And then there is the puja or their religious sort of requisite space. So it was a sort of a montage of many spaces. So therefore, for us, in terms of how we could orient the house was make it sort of semi-private and a private and sort of religious and sort of the bed space. So this culmination helped to make the house. In a way, when you look at the geometry of the house, the courtyard that we sort of integrated in between could make us understand the requisite of how these spaces got integrated, cross-functionally. I think that was very, very important. It was a simple sort of montage of a few vertical and few horizontal sort of weave that helped these three programs sit together. If we look at the ground level idea, as I said, the garden was the primary axis of arrival. Then after that, there were the series of screen walls which sort of helped the plan format itself into making of the house geometry. So which means to say that you have one which was the space of kitchen, this was the living space, and then you had the primary staircase and the arrival experience, and then a sort of an atrium space which is also where the puja was primarily located, and this was just a residue space, and the big sort of courtyard which was facing to the northern edge line. So this had a lot of garden and the whole park space available, plus the long sort of rectangle here added to form the master suite, with a cluster of toilets there, and again the dining court where this was the dining space and this became the dining area. So in a way that these walls that we had in between sort of articulated the aspect of how these sort of alienation of various activities should work. So primarily when you look at the matrix of the whole plan, if we take a large rectangle with the sort of courtyards there, and these sort of wall alienations helped for us to articulate the transitions of various layers of arriving into the house as a sort of a labyrinth. It was also very important not to make it very linear, because that would also destroy the aspect of sequencing. So there must be a sort of a wedge line of arrive and you surprise, you arrive and you surprise. I think that play is fun for the house. Some of the oblique elements such as the staircases or sort of various levels that you can articulate to arrive into the volume of the house helped us to make the architecture or the inside space a little more iconic. The whole staircase that sort of acted as a primary link to the arrival space sort of went back and connected into the whole living room space as a sort of a bridge connect, and then again there was another connect for the staircase to arrive back and then again turn around. So this whole space what we had as a volume became a kind of a library sort of vestibule around the whole living room area. So this act of moving around the house sort of helped people to sort of articulate and understand what that atrium space of the living, the two bedrooms on the top, the one bedroom on the ground, the guest space, all would get connected not just by having a direct vestibule space but more a circumambulatory idea within the house. The material was primarily large pieces of rock, in a way that when you go to any sort of village settlements around Bangalore, in its outskirts, you see these large stone slabs which are just stacked one next to the other, and it's kind of a bit rugged and it forms a very nice pattern as a wall. So we kind of looked at this as that old village wall and reconnected back to make that into the gate and the main part of the house, and then we aligned certain horizontal elements and made these very, very accurately crafted timber windows, along a very large white wall patch. So what happens in the composition was the base was very, very vernacular, so that when you look at the whole aspect of the facade sort of vestibule element, if you take one particular module, the base was almost like as though you would walk on any edge of a sort of a village wall. But then when you turn around and look at the window patterns and so the window cubicles that would elevate itself as projected spaces out of the white wall area, it would act as that urban setting with picturesque sort of pop-outs to the street. And very important is a lot of the invisible spaces, such as how do you deal with water, how do you do with a small STP, how do you recycle the water, do you maximize the reuse content of it, How do you regenerate the landscape on the terrace? So there was one large lower ground which took care of the whole activity spine with a large stormwater tank housed within the space. This also took care of the parking spaces and a very good terrace landscape, which was again all programmed back from sort of recycled water content, helped us to create a super big garden with a large study and party hall kind of arena space extending towards the terrace line. This not only insulated a lot of heat ingress into the particular aspect of the house, but thermally sort of contained it, so that the green aspect of the house was the service engineering, which was all passive. How do you make the house architecture with materiality plus the way you articulate the spaces be accurate to the weather, respond to the sun, respond to the rain and water intelligently? That makes the house super nice.